I don't think you have to go to college to learn how to build things. I think that as soon as you can find a mentor that's willing to teach you, and if you're willing to learn and put the time in, I think construction is one of those things that anybody with the will can do it. I think it goes for anything, just like software. I didn't go to school, and I've got a software company. I never went to school to write code or anything like that. I think that it just comes down to like figuring out what you want to do, putting your mind to it, and finding a mentor that can teach you along the way. And so I think that finding the skilled workers, though, I will say that I think that we're working against ourselves a little bit these days. I think that we have an opportunity right now to build America in an exponential way that's never been offered to us before.
Americans are capable of achieving extraordinary things when they have the freedom and opportunity to do so. This is American Potential.
Welcome to the American Potential Podcast. I'm your host, David Fromm. We've all driven past road construction at some point, right? Maybe you've slowed down for the cones or watched the crew hard at work, but have you ever thought that on one of those crews is someone who once dreamed of owning that very business? Well, today's guest is one of those people. After college, you got to start by learning the ropes on the job, working for someone else. But deep down, he knew he wanted more, and eventually, with a partner, he took the leap and started a company. It wasn't easy in the beginning, but it was worth every bit of the struggle. Now, he leads companies that don't just build roads and projects, they build people. He's passionate about hiring straight out of high schools, giving second chances to those who need them, and opening doors for immigrants chasing the American dream. I want to welcome Justin Mannina, who is the CEO owner of Rexcon Enterprises, LLC, vice president owner of JB Pinnacle Group, and co-founder and owner of My Truck Boss. Justin, welcome, and thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, I'm thrilled to talk about, you seem to obviously have a real entrepreneurial spirit. So first of all, how did you end up in the construction industry?
Yeah. So funny story. My whole family, except for me, has worked for Exxon in their life. My dad, I can remember as a child, my dad bringing home VHS tapes of his offshore platforms getting built when he was a construction manager for ExxonMobil, Exxon back then. And so his point of showing me these videos, right, was to get me interested in going to work for Exxon one day. But I after watching a few of them get built on video, I said, Dad, I want to go work for the company that builds those offshore platforms, right? And that was a large E&R contractor called Kiewit, and so he introduced me to Kiewit, and my brother and I both went to go work for him, and I really just grew a passion for building things and being able to look behind you and see that you had your hands had a part in building that. And I think if you ask my wife today, her and my kids probably get tired of me driving across Texas on trips with them and pointing out every road and bridge and barrier rail and whatnot that I had a part in. So, but to me, it's I've built everything from some of the largest airports to the largest carbon capture plant in the world to this date, and the largest federally funded highway system, and some really cool projects. So I'm grateful for the opportunities I've had. And but I mean, construction is my passion now, and everything that I contribute around outside of my family seems to have some leg from construction today.
That's really cool. I know as a kid, construction captures your imagination. I remember my parents, when I was very, very young, used to have to stop at the side of the road if there was a front end loader or a road grader or anything, just because I just wanted to see the machines. And I think there's also something really, really noble in building something, having something very tangible that's going to help your community or help a business or, fill some need. I think that's pretty noble and gratifying, I think.
Yeah. At the end of the day, you're solving problems, right? And there's not too many people that go into construction that aren't willing to work hard and aren't good at solving problems, right? And everything from the mechanics to the operators, to the concrete finishers. I mean, you see one of my favorite parts about construction is if you go out there and watch the crew, you'll see them come up with their own inventions, if you will, on the job site. Little jigs that make their job easier, modifications to the excavator to dig the trench at a certain shape, things like that. And to me, it's really cool. There's really no manual to the building part. There's obviously spec books and plans that we have to follow, but there's no manual that tells you how to build things faster. And that's what I love about construction.
That's cool.
It really, there's
maybe that's a metaphor for life for all of us.
Exactly.
So take me back to, so you're working for somebody else. You decide that you're going to open your own construction company, which is a huge leap. And you do it with a partner. Why did you decide to do that? And what did you all focus on initially?
So my partner back then actually wasn't even in construction. She worked at, for the Harrah's Casino. And then the two of us and her husband worked with me, and for large corporate companies in the past. And we got typical, conversations that strike up over Christmas break, right? You've been off of work for a week or two and you're having some adult beverages, getting smart, solving all the world's problems. And, so we started talking about all the hours we work. And, I think if we worked just as hard for ourselves, like, I think we would, I think we can make it happen. And they're like, if you're in it, we're in. Right. And so, my wife and my partner and her husband, we all got together and, made it happen. And I give tribute to Lauren for actually pushing me over the cliff there. I would tell you, looking back, it wasn't, all rainbows, right? But, I would call everybody that comes to me today saying they're about to start their own business. I say, sit down and do you have 5 hours for me to tell you all the reasons why you shouldn't first? And then if all that sounds like a challenge that you're up to, then I'll tell you the keys to success to get there.
So what were the early years like?
Yeah. So, I would say to sum it up, most of the early years, like the first 3 years, we probably were over and over saying, what the heck did we do? We both left 6-digit jobs, right? To do this. We had 401k, great benefits, all the things. And we started building this thing, and our first couple jobs, like, we had some serious issues and dug us a really big hole financially. And, it took us a good 5 years. I mean, we didn't pay ourselves for five years. We were working 2 jobs. We spent everything that was in our savings account and more. There was multiple times where we didn't know if we were going to get out of it. And, but you just keep grinding. And if you really believe in yourself and, after 8 years later, we've grown into another company even, to separate the branding and the type of work that we do. But like now we're partners in, 4 different projects, adventures that we've got going on. I wouldn't trade my partners for anything in the world. I would say that's the biggest thing, right? Is you hear all kinds of horror stories about your partners. But I would say I struck gold there, and I've got a pretty good, group of partners, and we treat all of our companies like family. And, when we go to work, we don't feel like we're going to work for somebody. We're just going to hang out with the family.
That's amazing. Yeah, I used to do consulting. I'd started a consulting company and had a business partner. And I remember a guy I really looked up to as a mentor said to me, well, Dave, the biggest challenge with partnerships are the partners. I was like, okay. And I was super blessed. I had a wonderful relationship with my business partner. We were great. We ended up closing up for other reasons to pursue just other things, but we were blessed in that regard. And so I'm happy that you got some harmony there with your partners, because it's a wonderful, it is. I always kind of think of it as like, it's kind of your work spouse in a way, you got some of the same challenges, but if it's harmonious and you're both going towards the same goal in a great way, you can achieve amazing things.
Very much so.
So talk to me a little bit about your second company. You said you started a second company. What's the difference between the first company, the second company, and like kind of what space are you in the construction world?
Yeah. So essentially JB Pinnacle was our first company. It's been going on since 2016. That company has, found a niche. We're essentially a specialty concrete subcontractor. So we don't work directly for the DOT, but we do a lot of DOT work. We work for the general contractors that, we do a lot of highway work, but we also do, we're diversified in markets. So we work in water, light rail, wastewater, power and energy, but, we do a lot of where we've really developed a niche for JB Pinnacle is with our, slip form barrier and curb. So we have these specialty machines that can, put down, 1,000 foot of concrete wall in a day with one crew. Whereas if you were hand pouring those, with just wood forms or steel forms, even you might only get 100 foot a day. So it's 10 times production, per crew. And, so we do that all over the state of, Texas, Louisiana, and Oklahoma. But that quickly became, something that everybody was relying on us for. But as we grew our team, we realized that we had, the expertise and bandwidth to do more. And so we established Rexcon Enterprises really to go after the different types of work without polluting the brand that we built with JB Pinnacle. One of the things that I find that, particularly in construction, but all businesses, do sometimes is they try to do too much, instead of just doing what they're good at. And so, us as owners, right, the partners, we wanted to go do more and different types of work. For example, working in the power plants more, doing some light dirt work, doing some pipe, stormwater, things like that. And more in the energy sectors. And we didn't want we don't want our focus of what makes us successful at JB Pinnacle to stray, right? So we started Rexcon Enterprises really to be, essentially a general contractor that can work in diverse markets and work directly for the client. And there's probably some times where, JB Pinnacle is going to do work for Rexcon and whatnot, but essentially we're setting the companies up to run independently for their own brand.
Cool. Well, and then to take it further, you created an app.
Yeah.
Why did what need did you see that needed to be served? Like, what problem did you want to solve that led you to create an app?
Yeah. So so I mentioned how I was working multiple jobs, while starting JB Pinnacle, right? And that was, a lot of that was helping, software construction or software companies focused in construction markets, helping them build solutions for real problems on the job site. So I was feeding ideas, drawing up schematics, talking to the developers and steering that direction for a couple different companies. Particularly during the COVID years, one example is, e-ticketing, right? So I was involved in, going around the United States, meeting with the DOTs and educating them on how we can make e-ticketing happen for the bulk material industry. So think about the rock coming to concrete plants and asphalt plants, and then the concrete going from the plant to the job site. All of that, right, was happening before COVID, was happening by paper, 100% paper, exchanging hands, making copies of tickets, and going back, getting driven half an hour to an office to get keyed into a system somewhere, right, or Excel spreadsheet. Very time consuming, expensive process of managing job sites. And I've managed, so to put that in perspective, like, why is that important? I've managed highway projects before that had $60 to $70 million worth of trucking and aggregates on a job. Not to even mention the million yards of concrete and 600,000 tons of asphalt on that job, right? So that there's a lot of paper tickets that go into an infrastructure project, and every one of those still to this day, most of those projects are still happening via paper, except for what the industry has been able to convert is like concrete, asphalt, and aggregate tickets. What they have not been able to convert to digital tickets yet is the third party trucking, particularly with dirt excavation contractors, and dirt haulers. And so, with Rexcon getting into dirt work, right? And we were digging, a 30,000 cubic yard detention pond for a mud district, a neighborhood. And this was in Houston, Texas. And, I knew that my budget, I had to hit, I had to dig 150 loads a day to make my budget. But I have all these other jobs statewide and in Louisiana that I was checking on. And so I wanted to know every day, how many loads I got. Well, today, most dirt contractors have to rely on those paper tickets to get back to the office, somebody to key it into an Excel spreadsheet or to send an email out. It's very delayed. So the timing of information, right, in the construction industry is still pretty delayed. Most projects do not know every day how much dirt got placed on the job. They know it now for aggregates. They know it now for concrete and asphalt because we've already gotten there, right? We're not there yet on dirt. And so what I've developed here is with my partner Kyle is which Kyle worked with me through those years at these companies doing all the same things. And when the need came up, we both said, nobody's ever really solved this third party trucking solution. And so what we did was we built a digital time card and ticket for the dump trucks to use and the contractors, the excavation contractors that are buying dirt, for them to keep track of their loads electronically on a mobile app. And as soon as they add a load on their mobile app now, the office already knows what their load count is for the day. So it's real time monitoring of your dirt, of your haul.
Yeah, that's a great example of using innovation to be more efficient and transparent and make business run better. It's fabulous. So you hire multiple people a day, and you hire skilled and unskilled workers. So how do you find your people? And for the unskilled workers, how do you train them?
Yeah, that's a good question. So one of the things that questions I get from my friends in the industry all the time is how is it that every time we get together, everyone else is complaining about the not having the people to build the work, but you, like, what is your secret? And I tell them all the same thing. Number one, you can never stop hiring. You can never stop looking for people that want to learn, whether they have experience or not. If you're willing to do the hard work that comes with construction, it's not easy. It's not built for everybody. But the one thing that I didn't learn in 4 years of college, and I don't think anyone learns today, is that there's two types of people in construction. You're either the guys in the field building the work, or you're somebody that's supporting the guys in the field building the work. I don't think enough people in construction realize that. I think they take it for granted that they're, the boss and they've got a college degree and all of this, right? And like, as soon as you realize that nothing happens on a job site without those guys in the field, then you start to achieve a lot more success in construction. And what I mean by that is I'd never stop looking for someone that wants to learn how to operate equipment, or someone who wants to, learn how to finish concrete, right? My neighbor's kid is 13 years old, raised on a farm, hardworking kid, anytime I need help around the place, and like, I've already got my eyes on him. He's 13 years old, and I'm like, hey, one day I want you to come work for me, because he's got it. Like, I can tell he's got it. And like, in his eyes, he's like, yeah, whatever, like, I'm just going to go build fence the rest of my life or whatever, right? Raise cattle, right? But, and to me, to put it in perspective, I don't think, again, you'll get this out of me, really, I don't think you have to go to college to learn how to build things. I don't think that, I think that as soon as you can find a mentor, that's willing to teach you, and if you're willing to learn and put the time in, I think construction is one of those things that anybody with the will, can do it. I think it goes for anything, just like software. I didn't go to school, and I've got a software company. I never went to school to write code or anything like that. And so it's, I think that it just comes down to like figuring out what you want to do, putting your mind to it, and finding a mentor, that can teach you along the way. And, so I think that finding the skilled workers, though, I will say that, I think that we're working against ourselves a little bit these days. I think that, we have an opportunity right now to build America in an exponential way that's never been offered to us before. And I feel like, I feel like we are doing some things that are putting up some barriers that in all the wrong places that, are hindering our biggest channels to creating those construction careers. And, I listen all the time on various podcasts, and you hear about things like the energy grid is insufficient, and we need more, we need to build our own clouds, and we need to build our own data centers and our own, power plants to run those data centers. And in Texas, we're not building enough roads to keep up with the expansion in Texas as it is, with, $10 to $13 billion a year in new construction. But they want to build more, but, and then we've got, but we've got people working against us, right? Like, and things like, trying to attack the guys that are immigrants, for example, that have a temporary status today. I just read the other day, the Fifth Court, Texas is trying to, stop the DACA recipients that, unfortunately, I mean, I probably wouldn't have voted for it 13 years ago, the DACA deal, right? That, like, I'm all for, coming the right way, safe borders, all those kind of things. But, I've got employees right now that have been in the system, protected from deportation for over 13 years now. They've paid their own way through college in Houston, Texas, at a prestigious construction management degree program. I've hired them, I've trained them, and now they're one of my best employees that I don't want to live without. And now they're talking about his work permit not being able to get renewed. Like, is that fair to me or the employee? Right. I don't know if
it
that's
seems to be working against us as a society. I mean, if I think that we can all agree that the way immigration has been going over the last number of years, particularly the past administration, was probably reckless and not healthy for the country. But immigrants, are part of the American fabric in terms of how they've, just throughout history, how we've filled roles and they've innovated and built, our communities. And so I think your example is somebody who's been doing it the right way and is creating a ton of value for you, your company, society. So it seems like we need an immigration system that recognizes that and can help make that a reality.
Yeah, I just, I'm all for, cracking down on the people that are flooding in and committing crimes and all that stuff. 100% get that under control. Right. But we have, the DACA program, to me, I see opportunity there. I see 535,000 people, temporary residents, that should be the low hanging fruit to go through that list first. Those people see if they've established a positive life in the United States, if they're contributing taxpayers. All of these things are very easy to see. And, and it could be filtered with the right software, it could be all done electronically. And you get this list of probably at least 50% of those people would be passed right off the bat without even ever talking to them. Right. Because we can see their, that they're where they live, where the house they bought, where their kids are in school, how much taxes they paid, how steady their jobs have been, all of that, right? And let's not forget, there's 500,000 people in the United States for the last 13 years that, probably 30,000 of those are teachers today. I can tell you my kids' elementary school can't afford to lose one single teacher. We've got people like moms volunteering to substitute for less than $10,000 a year full time, just to keep somebody in the class, right? I mean, it's some of these people are police officers, right? You hear about the shortage of police officers. I mean, there's plenty of states out, not all states, but some states do allow, DACA recipients to be police officers. And so I think we all need to be a little careful, right? Before we jump to anybody that's not a permanent resident today needs to get kicked out, right? We need to be careful with that.
Yeah. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, so as we wrap up, I think one of the things that stands out about you, and from what I can tell how you run your business, is always identifying talent, developing talent is really the key. It's amazing to me that more people don't always see this, but it's such a key to any successful enterprise. So what are maybe some of the success stories of people who have worked for you?
Yeah. I mentioned one of them, our guy, Gus, he's a DACA recipient. He's an estimator for me today. He, put himself through school at the University of Houston, construction management, and fortunately, the only avenue for DACA employees to become a citizen today is to get married to a citizen. Right. And fortunately, he's found his person and got married and had 2 kids, and, he's on his way to, citizenship. And, actually he told me just 2 days ago, he told me he got approved, had the interview and got approved for his, to go through the next steps and whatnot. So, really proud of that. But no, going back to even back in 2000, I'd say 2009, I met a guy who was, typical, he went to, a D2 college scholarship, but, in football, he thought he was going to go pro. He was kind of like one of those guys that was definitely going to go pro, right? But he got hurt, he got injured, and his career ended in a snap of the fingers, right? I was building a power plant in south of Houston, Texas, for my previous company, and a power plant and a carbon capture plant. And he showed up looking for a job, and our HR, and we were hiring 50 people a day. I mean, we had them running through the turnstile. Wow. And we had to get up to 900 employees on one job site in less than 6 months. Or else we were gonna be heavily impacted by LDs, right? And so we were just hiring everybody that wanted to, and I saw this guy get turned away from our HR office, right? And he's walking away. He didn't have any tools in his hand or nothing, right? And I went and chased him down. I'm like, hey, this guy's built like a football player, right? And I said, hey man, what's your name? His name's Vernon. And he's like, man, I got no experience. I got no education. I thought I was going to play football. I'm college dropout, and I've gotten into a little bit of trouble. So I've got a record, right? And HR said, due to my record, I can't make it. And I said, well, hold on a second, right? So I'm, and I'm like, hey, I'm going to take a flyer on you. And I talked to him for a little bit. I didn't just snap to it, but I talked to him a little bit about what he wanted and whatnot. And you could tell he was one of those guys that understood that he didn't take all the opportunities that came to it. He took a lot of opportunities for granted. But he knew that by this point, and I wanted to give him a second chance. Right. And so I took him under my wing, and for about 6 months, kind of rotated him around the dirt crew and the concrete crew, and then got him he found his way to the pipe crew. And, all I did was give him a chance. Right. But, I just talked to him after seeing him on an actual recruiting video for that company, 6 months ago. I called him up out of the blue, and he still had my number and stuff. And we called up, and awesome. And he's like, and I was like, man, I saw a title underneath your name that says you're a pipe superintendent for the number. And I knew the company. I was like, you're a pipe superintendent for the number 1 energy construction company in the U.S. how does that feel? He's like, man,
Oh,
you know what I mean? Like, he's like, and so this guy's somebody that got turned away, had no experience. All he needed was an opportunity. And he took that opportunity, he ran with it. He was a great employee, great asset. He was a cheerleader to the team. Everybody loves him. He's one of those positive guys that everybody needs on a crew. And man, he's got a couple kids and he's making $150,000 a year, you know. And I look back and I see that and I'm like, that's why we give people chances, right? Sure, there's some people along the way that I've had to fire that didn't work out, right? Like, I'm sorry, we have to part ways. This isn't going to work for either one of us, right? That happens. But yeah, so I personally would love to find a way to open more doors for construction careers, particularly through like high school recruitment programs, prison release programs, immigration assistant. I think there's some channels that we can open up more. I just talked to a friend yesterday actually about this, and they were saying that well, this is my partner was telling me about this. His son is in a school of over 1,000 kids. Their shop class only allows 30 students to make it into the shop class. So you know what I mean? This is a high school with over 1,000 people in it, right? And only 30 of those kids can learn the trade, be introduced to the trade, I should say, right? So I think we got to do a better job there of introducing, getting in where we can, whether it's in a prison, in a high school, in the immigration line. I mean, I know 50 companies that, you know, when all the immigration stuff was going on, when they had all these border checks going on, I know 50 companies that would have loved to pay money to stand at that gate with a sign, you know, anybody that wants to do construction, come over here, right? But you know, we make it hard on ourselves.
Well, it seems like we need to get that system. The immigration system does need to be fixed, and so that we can be getting the talent that we need. And I think I love your message on kind of second chances and even trades right out of high school. You know, I think that we've had a fallacy that going getting a college degree is the right thing for everybody. And, myself having adult kids, high school kids, younger, we've started to have those conversations, whereas before you didn't think about it. But I really appreciate what you're doing to help spread that word and kind of, frankly, you're reflecting like a belief in people when you go and look at them and see past even certain marks and say, hey, you can really be productive and unleash a lot of potential.
Yeah, you hear the old whippersnappers all the time, right? These kids these days, they don't want to work. Like, I don't believe that. I refuse to believe that. I'm not going there. Like there's people out there, always has been lazy people, and there always has been hardworking people. And I feel like if you just never stop looking for somebody to train, I can stand here today as a testament of that. The top 3 people in our companies, not a single one of them came to us with construction experience.
Wow.
Every single one of them was mentored. Every single one of them was mentored by me and my partners. One came in, basically with like an animal science degree, wanted to be a game warden, then realized it wasn't going to pay the bills. Another one was a lab tech, for an urgent care, and he realized he was capped out and, he was going to make the same thing the rest of his life with no place to go. Right. And he took a ride with me for a week in the passenger side of my pickup. Right. And, and at the end of the week, I'm like, are you sure this is for you? He's like, yep, this is what I want to do the rest of my life. And he's running our whole Central Texas area with, 80 guys under him. So, it can happen with the right leadership and training and mentorship. And, I just think that it's about giving people opportunity.
Yeah.
Now, let me put it I really appreciate real quick, if I may.
Yeah.
Just for those that there might be some parents that are like, I don't know about this concept of my kids not going to school. Right. Look at the average salaries of, name the degree, whether it's a mathematics degree or a poli-science or business, whatever, right? Go out there and look at the average salaries of these kids coming out of school with a couple $100,000 in debt from their school, right? And and I'll tell you today, like these people that I'm talking about, whether they come out of prison or the immigration line or high school, the bottom line is when they put on our hard hat, the lowest guy in our company makes like, I think $21 an hour. I mean, that's we are not trying to hire people that want to work for a low wage. These are serious, like, wages that a lot of people would love to have. Average, the average person, the average direct hire that works in the field, whether you're operating a skid steer or and this is in Texas, by the way, which is some of the lower wages. But you can make 25, you can easily make, I'd say $70,000 an hour at 20 years old, working a construction job. Piece of cake. 70 grand would be easy to.
That's great.
So put that in perspective when you're having that talk about, with your kids. Yep. And
with no debt, by the way.
Yeah. No debt. Like you can, instead of spending 200 grand over 4 years, you can make 300 grand over 4 years. And then by then, maybe you know what you want to do with your life.
Yeah. And those are conversations I was having with my son. That's exactly, I'm glad that we're starting to think that way though. So, well, Justin, I really appreciate like your story of entrepreneurship. It's a pretty cool story that I really love hearing. And then, giving back, believing in people, really taking a chance on folks and kind of recognizing that we need to do things a little differently in terms of our workforce and so that we can actually stay competitive. So I appreciate the time you spent with us and loved hearing your story.
Yeah, I appreciate you giving me the mic, and it was good time spending with you. Thanks.
All right. Well, hey, folks, if you like this episode and would like to stay connected with the podcast, be sure to like and subscribe to our channel, as well as following us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And always remember, liberty and freedom are easily taken for granted. Don't take them for granted. Go out there and defend freedom and liberty. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Thank you for listening to American Potential. You may listen to more stories from Americans working every day to expand freedom and opportunity in their communities by visiting AmericanPotential.com.